Welcome to Tanakh Talk. I am your host, William Hall, broadcasting live out of Kingsland, Texas, USA, with another episode of Controversial Issues with Rabbi Chaim Coffman from the Holy Land. Today, heaven and hell and whatever the other thing was we're supposed to be discussing. Sometimes I have the title sticking up on the screen, but sometimes I don't. And test my memory, which is always very entertaining, to say the least. It's good to have you back. How are you, sir?
Doing good.
That's good.
Everything's good.
That's good. So just to clarify, the end of days, Olam Haba, or heaven if you want to call it that, and the resurrection is going to be the topic for today. And so we probably we hardly ever have time to turn the phone lines on, but if you run out of things to talk about at the top of the hour, then we'll turn it on for a few minutes. No, you're not going to have time, right?
Never happens. Let's just keep going. Sorry, the phone works. The phone lines aren't on.
Well, you're like
going on.
Sorry. You're like the Energizer Bunny, though. I mean, we could have a 3-hour show and you still wouldn't have time for callers. So that's not necessarily a bad thing, right?
That could be.
Very good. Okay, so there you go. Let's cover all three, not necessarily in any particular order, but let's definitely don't merge the three together. So we'll tell me which one you want to start with, and that's what we'll go with, and then we can transition.
I'm not going to have to do anything. You're going to interrupt, and you're going to tell me exactly what's going to be in 35 seconds. Say, okay, go for it. That's how it normally works, right?
It usually is. Yes, indeed. So, kick it off.
At the end of days.
Yeah, kick it off with
we'll start with the end of. Yeah, go ahead.
What's the proper name for that? Eschatology or whatever you call it? I don't know. Is that right? Something like that. End of days.
What do you call the end of days?
Yeah. I was going to say staying married to my ex-wife. That was really bad. Hey, some people know that testimony. She stabbed me. One of my ex-wives, she actually stabbed me in the shoulder. I'm telling you.
Oh, my.
Yeah. No. No. I was my shoulder. Sorry, I wasn't pointing at her. I was pointing at my shoulder. I actually got stabbed in my shoulder from an ex-wife, and I was like, wow. If I'd stayed married to her, that would have definitely been my end of days for sure.
I get that.
Yeah, that's funny.
So that explains a lot, but that's for a different show. So.
Well, of course you could fit that. You could fit that into the devil part. You know, the devil with skin puller. Just thinking.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll speak about fallen angels another time. We'll have fun with that.
Right. What? I know. It's like, golly, man. Okay, cool. All right. So,
case.
There you go. So, we'll start off with the end of days, and we'll see what happens. And if you get too far off base, I'll just smack you with a little noise clapper.
If I don't get too far off base, you'll still do it. So either way, either way, we're good. We're ready.
Hey, you know me way too well. Doesn't mean everybody else has to, Right.
Any case.
Okay.
Right. So I think the single most important issue.
And I'm turning you back up, by the way.
Thanks. I'll be nice. The single most important issue I think non-Jews deal with, and want to deal with is the end of days. I think I'd have a lot more students if I only spoke about that. The more, esoteric things, within Judaism. But when you look at the end of days, you look at the verses. You look at Ezekiel, you look at Jeremiah, you look all over, verses contradictory, right? What's going to be, how it's going to be, etc. Nobody knows, right? No one knows exactly what's going to be. It could be, we'll see the writings on the wall, what, certainly could transpire, but pretty much it's anybody's guess. So basically the ones who know, they ain't talking, right? They're the ones that aren't saying anything. The ones in the know, certainly are quiet. It comes on the Rambam. Maimonides says that it's forbidden to try and figure this out because you're going to go through the verses. You're going to make the calculations. You're going to say, okay, the Messiah is supposed to come, this year, this day, whatever. Messiah doesn't come. You say, that's it. It can't be true. And a person becomes a heretic, right? So for the Jews, we'll make clear there is a mitzvah. There is one of the 13 principles of Maimonides of the Rambam to believe in the coming of the Messiah, right? And we wait for him even if he tarries, right? Major difference between us and the Christians. Christians already think he's come, right? But former head of the London Basin, Rabbi Chaim Abramsky, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha, may his name be blessed, would say that what does it mean that we're waiting for him? It's like you're waiting for an important guest. right? This guest's going to come 9 o'clock, 9:15, 9:30, whatever it is. You're sitting there waiting, right? So that's one of the questions, we're going to be asked after 120 years. Did you wait for the coming of the Messiah? Right? So waiting means like you're waiting for an important guest. So the Talmuds in Sanhedrin, page 97b, tells the story of Bar Koziva. Bar Koziva, better known as Bar Kokhba. Bar Koziva means the son of the one who lies. Interesting enough. Why is he called the one who's the son of one who lies? Because everyone thought that when he was fighting against the Romans and being successful, they thought this was it, that he was the Messiah. Now what happened? He got ratted out on, and the Romans came, they got him, and they killed him. So Rabbi Akiva learned from that he made a mistake, right? He made a serious mistake. The serious mistake was that he thought Bar Kokhba or Bar Koziva was the Messiah. So comes on the Rambam, mentioned the Rambam a few times, and the Rambam codifies this, and he says that in this piece of Talmud, someone who's going to be the Messiah cannot die. Right? Major difference between us and the Christians. He cannot die. Now, someone's going to say, well, aren't there two Messiahs? Right? Isn't there a Messiah of Joseph and a Messiah of David? True. There's a question the Talmud asks. The Messiah of Joseph, does he live or does he die? Difference of opinion. Some say he lives, some say he dies. But the Messiah of David, right? It's got to be from the line of David, does not die. He will not die. Now, there could be just like in that time that people thought, Bar Kokhba was the Messiah. In every generation, there is a Messiah just waiting to reveal himself, and the Messiah knows who he is. But if we don't deserve it, if the redemption isn't going to come, then, the Messiah will be passed on. Right? Sort of, I don't know, sounds like a torch, he's going to pass it on to somebody else. Right? Someone else, the next generation will be the Messiah. Right? Obviously, he's got to fit that criteria. And if he deserves to be revealed, to be revealed. Right? But we've been in exile 2,000 years. Right? So we see that, the Messiah still hasn't come, but, we'll see at the end, there are a lot of signs that, it's pretty clear we're living in the Messianic era, according to everybody.
Now, according to Christianity, of course, they're the Messianic people. They understand the concept of two messiahs, and they still stand on the fact that their Jesus was Mashiach ben Yosef, the son of Joseph, the Mary and Joseph thing. So just dismantle that real fast, if you could.
So even it doesn't matter. They both have to come at the same time.
Right.
You're not going to have one without the other.
They're going to be contemporaries. Right. Very good.
You need both, but even so, even if he died, well, all right, if he's not from David, then it doesn't really matter, right? It's the one from the Davidic line, and we know there's a discrepancy in the Gospels about his line to David.
Now you're onto something. Right? Now wait. Now you're onto something very interesting. You're bringing up a point.
But everything else was boring. Now I hit the topic. All right, sorry.
See, everything you do is controversial, but this is going to be very interesting. Okay, so explain why this would be great for those Messianic viewers right now to understand that even if Jesus did come and he was Mashiach ben Yosef, he's not even the important one. Tell us why that is, and tell us what the role of Mashiach ben Yosef. And we're a little on topic, a little off, but you can tie it all together. So what's the role of both?
That'd be a good question.
Okay.
Well, the role of the Messiah in general is to do a number of things which, we can just show factually, that JC didn't do, right? One of them is in gathering the exiles, right? You need to bring all the Jews into the land of Israel, right? That for the Messiah to come. That's why these evangelicals are very ecstatic that Jews should come and live in Israel. Because when the Jews come, then the Messiah is going to come. It's just the wrong one for them. That's one thing. The Jews have to come here. The second thing is that since nobody's done that, I mean, we still have more Jews in Israel than any. We just overtook, America a few years back. So the majority of Jews are in Israel, but it's certainly we're still lacking, 7 million, 7.5 million, right? So nobody's done that. Nobody's done that. What's the second criteria? He's going to build the Beis Hamikdash. He's going to build the temple. Now it is brought down that the temple is going to come from heaven, right? Sounds like a contradiction. The Messiah is supposed to build it. How going to come down from heaven, right? So some say, okay, it'll come down from heaven, he'll finish it. Right? It won't be 100% finished, he'll finish it, whatever. But those two things have to happen, right? This is something that has to happen. If it doesn't happen, you are not Messiah credibility. You don't have the criteria. And you have to come from the Davidic line. Right? Now you're going to ask me what's the major difference between Yosef and David. I think both have similar things, right? They're going to do that. They're going to bring in the exiles, etc. But even if Yosef dies, right? Again, the whole discrepancy. But even if he dies, then in the end, what's going to be is you have the Messiah of David. Right now, it's clear that the future Messiah has to come from him. The line has to be straight. So even if you want to say that JC was from Yosef, he's not from David.
Right.
He's not from David. There's a discrepancy. There's a huge discrepancy. Right? And if you go back in the genealogy. Right? So therefore, even if he was the Messiah of Yosef, okay, he's not going to be the Messiah of David. He's not coming back. Right? Now, there is a discussion. We'll just make it a little more confusing. There is a discussion whether the Messiah is going to come back from the dead or not. Right? Not really a discussion. The Talmud says that if the Messiah would be someone from the dead, in other words, if he be someone that died, like the prophet Daniel or whoever, he'd have X character traits. It doesn't mean he's coming back from the dead. Right? That's laid out. That's clear. Right? So in other words, anyone who thinks, any other, great rabbi or whatever, is coming back to be the Messiah, that's not going to be the case. Right? Might have the character traits of the person, might have other aspects, but he's not going to have that, he's lacking one major thing, life. He's got to be alive.
Right.
He's got to be alive in that generation. If he's not alive in that generation, you could have character traits of that person from previous generations.
And the Tanakh says the prophets prophets state that he will live long and have children, have offspring. Now Christianity says that that's spiritual offspring. How can that be argued? That Jesus fulfilled that, but he had spiritual offspring, not physical children.
Don't we always say everything's in context?
Oh, yes.
Right? It's in context, but
okay.
Right? So if he's a physical person, he's going to have kids. You can't twist it and say, "Oh no, it's a spiritual thing." The Messiah is a real person, right? Got arms, got legs, got a head, got feet, right? He's a physical person that does physical things. Mm-hmm. Right? It's not like you might think, oh, someone on that spiritual level who's got that spark inside him, that he's God's chosen one to destroy all the nations and destroy, God forbid, the Jews that don't deserve to survive, which we'll speak about.
Right.
Somebody like that lives in this world. He's not a monk. He's not living in ashram going, he's a real person, right? He's got needs. He's got physical needs. Right? So if it's somebody like that, you can't say, well, it must be a spiritual thing. It's clear the Messiah is not only a physical being, but when he comes and there's this tremendous war, of Gog and Magog, which we'll speak about, there's this huge war. It's physical. If you look at the verses in I think Jeremiah 38, I think it's pretty clear. Right? I think it's pretty clear. It's a bloodbath. It's a war that, a third are going to get destroyed, a third are going to be injured, and a third are going to survive. Question how many of the third of that get injured, are actually going to survive. Be that as it may, it's a physical thing. Now, the process to get to the Messiah coming could be a spiritual thing, right? In theory, right? It could be a spiritual thing, but the Messiah himself is not a spiritual being. right? You're not gonna say, oh, he was a real person, but it's really all spiritual. So they didn't have to have
Right,
kids.
right. Yeah, it doesn't make
Right?
sense that's a good point. I mean, if it was known that this mysterious howling wind was blowing around in the atmosphere, and everybody knew this howling wind was always visiting here, and then you could say this howling wind could have spiritual offspring, and you got these kids who howl. Yeah, you could see that. But like you said, if it's tangible, everything about him is tangible. Is got
Right. Right, but
fingers, toes,
that's one of
arms.
the.
Why all of a
It's one of
sudden?
the. Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was going to say it's one of the major differences between Judaism and Christianity, in the fact that, in the fact that a person has an obligation to get married, to have kids. You see what happens when someone stays celibate,
Mm-hmm. Right.
I think that's pretty obvious. It's like you give someone the greatest urge in the world to say, nope,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be married to me. You're married to God. Well, what's the end result in that?
It
makes sense.
People ask me all the time, well, how you say that Jesus violated commandments? Tell me some. Well, that's one of them right there. One of the first chronological commandments was be fruitful and multiply, and he did not do that.
Right.
And that's not a suggestion; it's a commandment. That's just one.
Listen.
It's
There
one of
are
many.
people, tragically, that don't get married. It can happen. It's not the way it's supposed to be, but someone for whatever reason doesn't meet their soulmate. They don't end getting married. But that's not on a woman. It's on a guy. A guy
Right.
has to get married. He has to
Right.
have children. Now, what happens if he doesn't have children? Let's say he gets married, doesn't have children. Doesn't have children. It's one mitzvah he didn't do.
Right.
Right? It's one mitzvah he didn't do. Right? But again, if you're living in this world, the Torah is all about this world. It's all about action. It's all about doing things. There are a lot of spiritual aspects to it. Right? There are a lot of deep things here. There's no question. Right? But when you talk about like the greatest people in the history of man, you talk about the patriarchs, you talk about Moshe Rabbeinu, you talk about these great individuals, they lived in this world. Well, I can't say about Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu sort of, ends up leaving his wife and, is pretty much married to God, but he had kids already.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He already hit the 48th level of knowledge, right? That's almost like being a pure soul in this world. So like, but there are great individuals throughout the generations. They had families. They had families,
Mm-hmm.
and you're considered, if you're not married, it's two halves of a soul. So if you don't get married,
Right.
you're missing that other half, right? So that's a major thing for future generations, whatever. The whole thing, whole thing has to do with marriage, but you have to live here.
Okay.
You have to be part of this world.
2 minutes till we switch topics.
2 minutes. All right. So if you look at the Passover story, 4 cups of wine. First cup of wine is for what? Kiddush. Sanctifying the day. Second cup of wine, story of the Haggadah, story of the Exodus from Egypt. Third cup of wine, grace after meals, right? You say it over a cup of wine. Fourth cup, then you have a fourth cup for the rest, and you have the cup of Elijah the prophet. What's the connection? What's the connection to Elijah the prophet and the redemption of Jewish people? So it says Prophet Malachi tells us he's going to show and announce that the new Messiah. He's going to say, hear ye, like Paul Revere, hear ye, this is the Messiah. That's his job.
Right.
That's what Elijah is going to do. Now, in the time of JC, did Elijah announce him?
No.
Did anybody announce?
No, in fact, they
didn't
denied.
announce it.
In fact, John the Baptist, who Jesus said was Elijah in the flesh, denied the fact that he was even Elijah. So no one can even agree on that either. So.
Okay, good. So there's a connection of physical redemption and spiritual redemption. That's the fifth cup, right? That's the fifth cup. If you look at Malachi chapter 3, verses 22 to 24, right? It says, remember the Torah of Moshe, my servant, I commanded you at Horeb, all of Israel's decrees, statutes. Behold, says Malachi, the prophet, right? Everyone agrees he's the prophet. And he says, I send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great awesome day of Hashem. What's that? The coming of the Messiah. He's going to turn back to God the hearts of the fathers, sons of the hearts of the sons to the fathers, lest I strike the land with utter destruction. That doesn't make sense. What do you mean? Turn the hearts of the sons to the father, father to the sons. So there's a tremendous tshuva movement today, right? 90% of Jewish people don't know anything about Judaism. Over the last 30 years, you got people coming back, right? Certainly people coming back. So even though we're losing 35,000 Jews into marriage and assimilation, right? Elijah's going to return the hearts of the fathers to the sons. That's what we're living in right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's definitely what we see.
Right.
Now,
okay, we are at our 20-minute mark, so transition,
okay.
if you can, quickly into Olam Haba and the heaven idea.
So what's going to be when you have this war, right? This great war of Gog and Magog, right? The whole question, who Gog and Magog are, some say it's Edom against Yishmael. Edom represents the Western world, says the Malbim on Zechariah chapter 14, against Yishmael. Who's Yishmael? The Arabs, the Muslims, right? So when that happens, there's going to be this great war. It's going to be this great bloodbath. And then afterwards, what do you have? You have the fact that a third are going to die, a third are going to be injured, and a third are going to survive. Now, that being said, the 6 days of creation, what do the 6 days of creation represent? Each day is 1,000 years, right? So the world, as the rabbis learn, the world's going to last for 6,000 years. So 6,000 years, we're already by what year are we? 57, 80, right? They got another couple hundred years.
Yep.
Couple hundred years before the 6,000. When the 6,000 year comes, there's another 1,000 years. Another 1,000 years of Tohu Vavohu, of Genesis chapter 1, verse 2, of chaos, meaning that the world gets destroyed. Kind of like the back of that Led Zeppelin album, right? Chaos, right? So what happens is, when does Olam Haba take place? Right? What's the chronology here? So the chronology, first the Messiah has to come. Right? The Messiah has to come. Half the world seemingly is going to be wiped off the face of the map. So you got the Messiah taking care of business. And then there's a whole difference of opinion when Olam Haba starts. Now you have to understand, when a person gets judged after 120 years, if they get fixed up in hell, they get it's a purification process. Once they get fixed up, they're in a like a waiting place, in the next world, right? They're basking in God's glory, whatever that means, learning Torah at a very high level as a pure soul, and then waiting to come back to this world. So there's a whole question if Olam Haba exists already right now. In other words, you got these souls sitting there learning, doing whatever, God wants them to do, etc., in that spiritual world. And then you have the physical world, right? So the Rambam learns there's really no difference. Rambam disagrees with others. He says there's no difference between this world and the next, right? It's really pretty much the same. The question is, what about resurrection? Mm-hmm. Are we in the same body? When does resurrection take place? Right? So seemingly, if a person's waiting in that soul world and you're getting all the spiritual benefit and whatever else is going on, so either you're waiting there, right, until the Messiah comes, and once the Messiah comes, right, so the Rambam would say, great, Messiah comes, it's a similar world, even though it's going to have to be cleaned up or whatever, but you have this world, and then you have people who deserve to be in this world will be there, right? In other words, maybe you have these souls come back. Oh, when are they going to come back? They're going to come back at resurrection. Now, when is resurrection? Right? Resurrection, Olam Haba may be the exact same thing. Meaning, once the world's destroyed, you have 1,000 years in between. Seemingly, the Talmud says that even according to the Rambam, if we're still human, we still have human bodies or whatever, seems that we're going to have wings, be, flapping around for 1,000 years. I don't know exactly what we'll be doing. Whatever, but I don't know. I'm kind of afraid of heights, but I don't know. Flapping around with wings, I don't know. In any case, you have that 1,000 years, and then you have, and then what seemingly you're going to have is Olam Haba, right? All those souls that deserve to be there will be there. Now, what happens after that? So according to the Rambam, maybe we'll be doing similar things we're doing now. According to others, it's really a spiritual world. Right? But there's only one caveat. If it's a spiritual world, you're living in the physical world, what about resurrection? What happens at resurrection? So what happens at resurrection, it's called the day of that great judgment, and everybody's going to get judged, even someone who made it to Olam Haba. Right? Even someone who made it to the spiritual world, and they survived hell, they got fixed up, and they made it in there, they got a, first row seat, second row seat, whatever it is, they end up there. Is that 100% guaranteed they're going to get up at resurrection? No. I mean, I would say it's probably a pretty good chance, right? But God is going to say at that point, there's going to be a huge judgment on everybody, right? On everybody. And if a person merits it, and they were dead, they'll wake up, right? They'll get up. Now, The only question is, the little bits, that I know, as the Zohar says, a person's going to get up in a body. Now, you're going to ask, what type of body is it? Most believe that we are reincarnated souls. We haven't. This is not our first time being here. And if I ever get a hold of my soul is in trouble for putting me through all the aggravation I've had to go through, right? But we've probably been here 3 times, twice, 3 times, probably the last time we're going to be here, right? Which is a big topic in and of itself. But even so, the question is going to be, okay, whose body gets up at resurrection? Maybe it's, someone who's half my height. I don't know. Maybe someone 3 feet. Maybe someone, I really wanted to be much taller. Maybe someone 7 feet. I don't know. Whoever, right? So it's brought down seemingly that whatever body that the soul was in, that brought it closest to what it was doing here, whatever it was supposed to do here, whatever potential it was supposed to reach, that body's the one that's going to get up at resurrection, right? So, I could be looking at my face and say, nah, not going to make it. It's gonzo. Whatever it is. But I asked my Rebbe this once, and it seems that the body's not going to be the same type of body that we know. So, of course, that wasn't satisfactory to me. So I asked him, okay, so what does that mean? So he said it's going to be a different body. It's not a body that, it's a different body, period. So he told me, he said, listen, he said, I've never met anyone who's been in that world and come back. I said, okay, it's a good point, but what type of body is it? And he's like, yeah. He's like, don't forget to shut the door on the way out. I'm like, okay. So it's going to be a body. We don't know what type of body, right? It's going to be, similar to what we have now, a face that's similar to whatever helped the soul reach its potential, whatever the case is. But guaranteed, God's going to go through each person with a fine tooth comb to see if they really deserve to be in that world.
Okay, I want to back up.
I want
to back up just for a second. So, and okay. Deanna, feel free to jump in anytime. So, I
can't. You just interrupted me.
Okay, so the process is, like you said, if a day is like 1,000 years, and we've got so it'd be 7 days, and the 7,000th year would be the Shabbat, right? So in the 6,000th year, which technically would be in the next millennium, would be the time when the world is supposed to go under destruction.
Right.
Really, and it would be and
Shabbos. Right, when it hits 6,000, right, that's when the world gets destroyed. It's like a sabbatical 1,000 years.
And then at the end of that is when Mashiach's supposed to come, or before that?
No, before.
No.
No, the Mashiach's supposed to come before the year 6,000.
Okay, good. Okay, and then...
He's supposed to come before the year 6,000. Everyone's going to get destroyed. And then, however much time there is in that time, so it could be, according to some opinions, it'll be Olam Haba. These souls will come down, whatever it is, in this world. Then the world gets destroyed for 1,000 years, and then Olam Haba starts, right? After the 1,000 years, we'll be flapping our wings doing whatever, and then there's resurrection.
Gotcha.
Right? Then resurrection will happen after that. Now, I would assume, my assumption would be, if somebody made it into the spiritual world, not everyone obviously makes it. Some people, will get their Olam Haba, their next world, quote unquote, in this world, because they don't deserve to be in the next world. So what will God do for whatever mitzvah they did? Let's say somebody helped, Granny cross the street. So you say, wow, okay, God's going to give that mitzvah in this world. Why? Because it wouldn't be fair. Even if an evil person does something good, how can he not be repaid? So God give him fame, give him money, give him all these things. He's going to say, scram. And he's going to knock him off from the next world.
Wow.
So what's going to happen? He's going to die like a dog. What happens when a dog dies? Nothing. Goes poof. My language. Nothing happens.
Doesn't go to hell. He just disintegrates, and as if he never existed.
That's it.
Right.
It's an
We're going to have so many arguments with people who love animals.
Oh.
That's it. Here they come. Here they come. My animal went over the rainbow bridge.
Right.
It's coming. Just getting ready.
When I was in South America, I was in Chile, and I went to I went to a zoo, and at the beginning of the zoo was a pet cemetery. It was like, here lies Fido. Here lies, like, it must cost like thousands of dollars to bury your animal, in this place. I was like, quick, get 10 people. We'll say Kaddish. We'll say the mourner's prayer for this dog. But they had like a whole burial thing. It was like, you couldn't even make this stuff up. So when a person dies, if their soul is not worthy to go where God wants it to go in spiritual terms, then nothing's going to happen to it. Right. Like someone told me once, they said, yeah, when I die, I'm going 6 feet under. So I said, yeah, I hope for your sake you're right. Because if they're going 6 feet under, that's it.
Right.
That's it. They're not going to get judged. Nothing. I mean, whatever. They're basically, they'll disintegrate. They're not going to get anything.
So the idea of we have to actually dabble into this. So now the idea of hell is in everybody's mind. So you're saying that if somebody didn't
who Satan?
So if somebody did not make the cut to go to heaven, and let's say they had bad deeds, they just die, or do they go to?
No. So the way judgment works is, we look at hell as something that nobody wants to go there. That's why, a person, if their parents die, they say the mourner's prayer for 11 months. Because that's what we hold. The person isn't, getting their soul fixed up. It's a cleansing process. It's a painful process, right? But it's a cleansing process to purge the terrible things the person did, right? So if a person, they tried in their life, whatever, and they still have to get purged of things that they did wrong, okay, right? So there will be something left of them, and, they'll get fixed up, but it's a painful process. Now, you can't imagine a soul is a spiritual being, right? If a soul is a spiritual being, how can it get the punishment? How can it feel the punishment? It's hard, it's hard to imagine. One aspect of that is when a person dies, the Zohar says, and this is what happens to anyone who has an out-of-body experience, right? Anyone who has an out-of-body experience says the same thing. Their soul hovers over the body. They say great light. They say, I want to go to this great light. They see their lives flashing before their eyes. Everything they've done has been recorded, right? You have 2 angels follow you everywhere, right? Just when you thought it was safe to read National Geographic in the bathroom. Nope. Angels are right there recording, right? So therefore what? Therefore, everything's being recorded. And you can never deny anything that you did. So part of the embarrassment, and now you're a pure soul. So now you understand what the true reality is, because you don't have the body limitation. You don't have the evil inclination. You're a pure soul. Everything's clear. Part of the purification process, or what we'll call hell, part of it is that total embarrassment. Because the person showed 2 movies. What's the first movie? What you did in this world. The second movie is what your potential was. What you could have done, why you were put in certain situations, how you reacted, and what you should have done. Now, we make a lot of mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes, right? We don't know why we're put in certain situations sometimes. Our reactions might not be right and all this. When a person sees that and they understand absolute truth, the only thing they can do is shrug their proverbial shoulders, because they don't really have shoulders in the spiritual world, right? But they're embarrassed. Being embarrassed is akin to murder, but that's purification. It's a purification process. There are other things that souls suffer, right? Let's not make it a cakewalk here. Okay, embarrassment's bad, right? Imagine it's, there are 3 cookies left in the cookie jar. You look around, no one's there. You stick your hand in there, all of a sudden someone comes. You're embarrassed. Embarrassed is part of that, is part of that process. I mean, there are the worst things. A lot of other worse things that can go on, up there, but doesn't mean a person's not going to get into, is not going to get into paradise. Again, it's going to depend. It's going to depend what they did, how they do things. The Gemara says if a person doesn't prepare in this world, right? If you don't prepare Erev Shabbos, right, before Shabbos, you don't eat on Shabbos. So that's pretty obvious. If I don't make food before Shabbos, I ain't going to have food on Shabbos. So it means in spiritual terms. If you don't prepare yourself in this world, what in the world do you think you're going to have in the next world?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Why should anybody get anything in the next world? You're going to say, they don't know very much, right? So certain things will be looked at like they didn't do it on purpose, even though it's a rebellion, whatever. But if someone desecrates Shabbos, let's say, they don't care about Shabbos, doesn't matter what they know. They cut themselves off. They get spiritually cut off. So there'll be people say, no. The Mishnah says every Jew has a portion of the world to come. So someone told me, says, yeah, so my portion will be less. Well, who says you're going to get there?
Mm-hmm. Right.
You have to have a merit to get there. And if you got there, you're not even going to be passing out cigarettes. You're not going to have any connection there. Even though seemingly there's stories of people that seemingly didn't have so much of a connection, but they became unbelievable Torah scholars. Right? Up there. They were taught and they learned and whatever. That certainly can happen, but it's hard to imagine. People who toil in Torah day in and day out, and they work on themselves. Okay, they're going to get punished for things they do wrong. But someone who doesn't care, and someone says, I'm going to do what I want, and, whatever's going to be is going to be. Why should they have anything? Why do they deserve to do anything? In my language, God will say, okay, here's $1 million. Here's plenty of money. I'll give you everything, and goodbye. Why should you have why should you have a portion? There are some people, not too many today, but there are some people inherently evil. And they're suffering day in and day out, right? And they'll suffer forever, right? There are stories. One story of Titus, the Talmud says, that he helped destroy the temple. And he did the jitterbug with a woman in the Holy of Holies. And when he died, he said he wanted all his ashes scattered over the 7 seas. So therefore, the God of Israel is not going to be able to punish him. So what does the Talmud say happens? Every single day, God gathers up his ashes and burns them again. Forever.
Wow.
Forever. So there are people that are going to pay a serious price, and
Hitler.
They're inherently evil, and God is going to zap them, and he's going to take care of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not going to see the day of light. That's it. Right? But the funny thing is, so if God does that, what does that do to the soul? It's painful every time the soul has to go through it. There's a story. I'll just tell one other quick story. There was a story of somebody who committed suicide, which is actually pretty bad. Within Judaism, no Jewish burial, no mourning prayers. You don't mourn for them, etc. The story somewhere down south, many people say the same story. Driving on this road, all of a sudden they see somebody jar out in front of the road, and all of a sudden, clunk, 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 clunk. They feel like they run over somebody. They stop short. They stop the car, look underneath. There's no body. And there are many, many people who tell the same story. Right? So they went to this great Kabbalistic rabbi and asked him, like, what is this? Oh, this person, yeah. This is being reenacted over and over and over again. This is his punishment. Right? The punishment is what he did, though, for however long until he gets his true judgment and he's able to have an eternal rest. God's going to send him back to this world. And he's going to reenact that every single day. I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine what that's like. That's the worst thing. If someone does not have, their eternal rest.
It's interesting you say that, because there's a show. There's a show. It would be controversial, so fit right in with the conversation today. That on Netflix, I think, and it's called Lucifer, and they showed a depiction of hell and what it would be, and it's pretty much basically kind of what you just said. It's like if a person did this horrible act, and then they finally were, after they died, they finally came to realize how horrible it was. Their hell was recommitting that act over and over and over again for eternity, or for an extended period of time.
That's only by certain people. That's not.
Yeah.
Also you have to take into account. Let's say a person does tshuva.
Right.
A person repents. That wipes out a lot of things. Also, depends what level, how they did it. Mm-hmm. All these things. Not. This is not a. I'm just talking in generalities. I'm just pointing out this can happen.
Right.
Doesn't happen on a regular basis. Again, I don't know what goes on in the spiritual world. Right. But there's even a worse thing where, somebody can't get into a. Someone doesn't have a proper burial. He's not even in hell. He's like, running around trying to save his life from these, destructive angels or whatever, right? There's another. So when a person dies, The most important thing is that they get buried very quickly, right? When a Jew dies, and they get the proper judgment. Again, even if a person goes through purification and they get fixed up or whatever, as painful as it may be, the fixing up is going to save them. That's what's going to get them, that's what's going to get them into, into paradise. There are other things that they may do that it may come out, punishment may come out in their kids. It may come out in other ways.
Right.
It can happen. It can happen any number of different ways. Though, obviously, we're not privy to that, but there are many stories.
All right. So
there are many stories that people have said, about this.
All right, we're going to make a transition now that you took a sip of your. Hopefully, I hope that's not coffee. I'm just saying.
No. Tea.
Okay, decaf. Hopefully. Anyway, okay. So we're going to transition on. So there are some questions on YouTube, and Deanna's going to read them off. Depending on how much time we've got, about 20 minutes left. So depending on how quickly you answer them, we'll ask as many questions as we can squeeze in. All right, Deanna, go right ahead.
Okay, so I'm not totally well versed in this, but someone had said Harry had asked about. He said the Mishnah states that 200 years prior to the 6,000th year, Mashiach is on the scene. We have 220 left. So he insists that the Mashiach is here now, but is a small child. Is there any truth to that?
Is it a possibility, at least?
There's a Messiah in every generation.
Right.
In other words, if the Messiah is ready to reveal himself, he's not a child.
But he's referring to the final Messiah.
Yeah. We're again, this is the Messianic era. I don't think there's any question. There are 15 signs that the Talmud says that show that we're living in the Messianic era. So if that's true, then there's a Messiah in every generation.
Does this Messiah know who he is?
Yes. Yeah.
I keep wanting to say he or she, and I was already corrected that it will not
habit.
be a she.
But you're a school teacher. You're a creature of habit.
You're a fire.
Can't be a she. I got no shot at this at all.
You're just gonna fry. Your body's gonna explode. It'll be great. It's kind of like Gremlins. Put them in a microwave. That's it. You're finished.
So to refine that question, there's a major concept in the Christian New Testament where I believe that they believe that Jesus is the Messiah, but I believe that he didn't even think he was, which is why he asked Peter, "Who do you say I am?" Because I think he didn't even know. So in this particular case, in each era, does each Messiah know that that's him, or does it slowly get revealed to them?
Yes.
Yes. yes.
What?
They know who
that was an either-or question.
They know exactly who they are. It just means they may not merit to reveal themselves.
I see what I mean. Okay, so they do know who they are? Even from a young age? Even from a young child?
That I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know from what age.
That makes sense.
I don't know from what age
that makes sense.
Know.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. Next
I
question.
would assume they have to be older unless they're like, they're living. They could be living on a totally different plane than we understand.
Okay, fair enough.
Kind of like people think like the 10 tribes, like a similar thing. They're just like living somewhere where they're living on a totally different level than we are. So, if they come back or not, whatever.
Okay.
All right. So, and Christopher had another question. We were kind of talking on the chat about souls, and I know. So, if the soul is a divine spark from God, if there's a soul that doesn't merit resurrection, what happens to that soul? And I think you were talking about like it,
Poof.
It poofs. So God.
in other words, if the soul's in the body, where the body's pretty much just bones, but when it comes to resurrection, if the soul deserves to come back, it's going to be part of those bones and whatever body it's going to be in. If it doesn't deserve to come back, it gets banished. It there's nothing left of it. It gets destroyed.
So this even
it ain't coming back.
Spark of God, and God just goes, no, I'm not going to emanate that spark anymore.
Right?
It's snuffed out.
Gonzo.
Okay. All right. One more. Let's see. When Mashiach comes, what will happen to those people who are neither Jewish nor Noahide?
Atheists, agnostics, Buddhism.
Idolaters.
Yeah, idolaters, right.
So, as we mentioned, what happens? A third of the people die straight away.
Poof.
Idolaters.
So now we're talking about Thanos and the whole thing where he just
right,
like,
exactly.
serious? Are you
Like
serious?
this.
That's crazy.
Like this.
Wow.
That's it. They
Now I'm wondering if
disappear.
the people who created that movie were Jewish or not. Who knows? Maybe. That's some
You know,
strange
there's
stuff.
an interesting thing. The students of the Vilna Gaon, Rabbi Elijah Vilna, more than 250 years ago. Now, not everyone agrees it's going to be this final war, but if you look at, you look at the verses, it seems like it's going to be a major bloodbath. But some say that the First World War, Second World War took care of that. It's really going to be like a spiritual war, but it's very hard to imagine. In any case, the students of the Vilna Gaon said, in the name of the Vilna Gaon, if there's going to be a war, and he said this 250 years ago, it's only going to take 12 minutes. Now, 250 years ago, there were no planes. There are no missiles.
Right.
There are no nothing. So obviously that was
impossible to conceive.
Yeah, that was definitely prophecy. What he saw. At the end of the day, there are a lot of signs. It could happen today. It could happen tomorrow. There are definitely a lot of things going on. As we mentioned, the Malbim says in Zechariah chapter 14, you got Gog against Magog. You got the Muslims against the Western world, right? It's a major bloodbath. Now, he said this more than 100 years ago now. Before 9/11, you would have thought he was a crackpot. God, what do you mean? The Muslims don't have anything. They don't have any power. They're like nomads. They live in tents all over the place. They don't have any power. But you see what power they have. Not only that, they have a minority in a lot of countries, a very strong minority, right, in the Western countries, right? So it's an absolute powder keg waiting to happen. Now, it doesn't mean it has to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. There's a medrash says if there's going to be this war, it's going to start with the king of Paras. Where's Paras? Iran. It could start there. Some say we're not even going to be in the land of Israel at all. The Messiah is going to drag all the Jews in the desert and bring them in. Some say it's metaphorical. Some say it's not real. I remember my Rebbe told me this. He was telling me this, and he had this big smile. So I said, "What are you smiling at?" I said, "If Mir Hashem, the Rav's still around." I said, "You're also going to be in the desert. They're going to have to drag you out of the desert also." Right, but nobody knows, But if you were to say the writing's on the wall, it's on the wall. I don't think there's any question. The question is how it manifests itself. And again, one major difference between, Jews and the Christians is like this is what the Christians like eat, drink, and sleep. For Jews, yeah, okay, it's gonna happen. One way to happen, the other way, what difference does it make? How it's gonna happen? God will orchestrate it. I have to survive in this world. I have to live in this world. I still have to keep Torah. I still have to keep mitzvahs. Many people will be happy. Then their bank account won't be in the minus anymore. They're like, come on, Messiah, let's go. I won't be in the minus anymore. Everything will be great. Right? But, it's I've gotten this question a lot. So people say, well, what do you think is going to happen? I'm like, it's a difference of opinion across the board. No one's really clear. I mean, there are certain signs. I can tell you what I think is going to happen, but it doesn't mean anything. That definitely doesn't mean anything. But, in that sense, the bottom line is what you brought up before is that someone who doesn't, someone who spits in God's face, they're gone in the first minute. When that thing happens, if it's nuclear war, whatever, they're gonna disintegrate. The snap, that's it. They're gone. So, but there's no time for repentance.
But that's the thing,
right?
though.
A person won't be able to convert either. They won't be able to convert either.
Okay,
right?
hold on.
It's too
Rabbi.
late. They're already seeing the miracle.
Okay, Rabbi, hold on.
That's kind of the argument, though. If they don't believe in God, if they don't want to be with God, why would they want that all to happen any other way? I mean, they'd want to be like...
Well, once they become aware of the truth, then they're going to be like, oh, crap, maybe I should have... Okay, so wait, let me ride your train. So...
All right.
No, but you're going to see... But a person's going to see all these things. They're going to say, they're seeing all these things before they disintegrate. They're going to say, I want a part of it.
Too late.
Someone say, I want to be part of the Jewish people. You can't convert. Just like in the time of King David and Solomon. Time of the Beis Hamikdash and all the miracles, can't convert. No free will.
Right.
If someone was in the process of conversion, yeah, they'll probably let them convert and stay. Right? But, other people, you're right. If they didn't want a part of it, they'll disappear.
So what happens to the righteous non-Jew who decides not to convert, even all the way through that? Do they have a part?
They should also, if they deserve, they'll have a place in the world to come.
Nice.
Right? They also have a place in the world to come.
Yeah.
So if they deserve to come back, why shouldn't they come back?
Yep.
They believe, they have the faith, they kept what they should have kept.
Right.
Obviously, if God doesn't think they did enough or whatever, fine. But, in general, the entire, again, when it comes to resurrection, it's not just, we're going to judge the Jews. Not just the Jews.
Right.
But the
Okay.
entire world gets judged.
So on that,
Right? Everybody, all mankind.
On that note, the last question, because I know we're running out of time. Larissa wants to know, do non-Jewish individuals need to be concerned with how to be buried?
No.
So they could be cremated and it won't matter?
Yeah, it doesn't apply to them.
So wait, okay, so in the world to come, if they have a part in the world to come, even if they're cremated, that won't matter?
God can take care of that.
He'll gather their ashes
A Jew cannot do that.
Okay.
It's forbidden for a Jew.
Okay, that's cool.
Right? Because obviously a Jew you have to go in the ground. Right? That doesn't apply to a non-Jew.
Okay, well, so if they are resurrected, does God just form a new body for them?
Could be. Right? Just like we did with Titus. Took all the ashes. You know, it'd be much easier if they got it on an urn. They go, okay, I got it right here. Whoa.
Don't spread them out to sea. It's too hard to collect them up again.
I'll tell you
wow.
one quick story while we're running out of time. There was a story. This guy, you know, his dog died. So what did he do? He had the dog cremated and put it around a tree, the dog's favorite tree. So he put in his will when he died, he said he's going to do the same thing. He said, it's good enough for my dog. It's good enough for me.
Oh, my. Interesting.
So if you deserve it, so then yeah, God can do anything. Whatever the ashes are, put it in the body. What do you do with people in the Holocaust? Same thing. Mm-hmm. You know, those who deserve to be resurrected, they deserve to be resurrected.
That's a great point.
God will take the ashes, put them back together, put them whatever type of body. Doesn't matter.
That's a great
God
point.
can take care. God can do anything. He can take care of that as well.
Right. Gotcha. Very cool. Awesome. Very cool.
Good show.
Yeah.
One of our better shows.
Yeah, that was fun. I actually like that whole part about doing the first 40 minutes and then take the last 20 minutes for Q&A. So, unfortunately, she's not going to be here every week, so I'm going to have to...
You just killed all my good material. I had 20 minutes of good material. Wait a minute, rewind.
Hey, you're the one who decided to conflate the mid 20 minutes into covering both topics, so that was your fault.
You can play on YouTube. You can do it in 1.5 times. I should be able to speak faster.
I think if you speak faster,
speak faster,
don't
and then I'll get all the information out.
Don't speak faster. Just get your good material up in the front load it.
I got it out. Listen, I got it out. You have 2 minutes and 35 seconds to sum up everything.
That's just crazy. Right. All right. Well, Rabbi, we'll go ahead and call it a day then, man. That really was a great show. I appreciate your content. Thanks for handling it the way you did. It was very informative. And looking forward to a lot of the follow-up comments to see the interaction on it. I mean, there's a lot of things
great chat today, too. Everybody in chat's been really, really awesome. We only had to boot one person.
That's nice. Now, y'all behave yourself whenever on the next show because she's going to be in it. And so I got some other moderators out there going to be slapping wrenches around. So behave yourselves out there.
It's always the controversial things I got issues with. Other stuff is like pretty nonchalant. It's only the hatred I get.
I'm one of those people, they love me or hate me, and the ones that hate me are going to be ready.
Yeah. That's funny.
They'll be ready for you and for me. That's it. I'll send them to you.
All right. You guys have a great week. We'll see you guys same time, same place with this particular show. Next week, it's your milling. So y'all take care. Peace out.
Bye-bye.
חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד. איפוק זו העוצמה, ויתור זו הגדולה, השאיפה והכמיהה. אני אתה אתם תמיד תמיד כולם ביחד. חשוב מכל חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד.